Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. Malisela Teffo is back in the news, making the headlines again. After that startling disclosure that he made on the MacG podcast, that it was in fact Kelly Kumalo who accidentally shot Senzo MEYIWA in the Kumalo house on the 26th of October 2014. This is not the first time that Teffo comes up with this kind of information, and it is not very clear why he is bringing it up now, but he has over the years consistently maintained that the narrative of 636, that there had been intruders into that house, was simply a made-for-TV narrative. He has never believed in that narrative that there had been intruders into that house and that the evidence was simply manipulated by investigators to implicate or to falsely implicate the 5 people that we are now seeing facing trial in the Pretoria High Court. I have always said Teffo will be part of this Senzo MEYIWA saga, one way or another. We saw how while he was in practice, he was involved in a lot of controversies, more especially after he first made this disclosure about 2 dockets and, after he started rubbishing the 636 narrative, that led to his unfortunate arrest in court. It was unprecedented in the South African legal system to have seen, an advocate get bundled like that in court, like a common criminal. Therefore, this time was even more emotional about things. He even cried during that interview on that podcast. And one gets a sense that there is perhaps a lot that this man knows that we don't know. Now, these disclosures by Teffo, I don't know what sort of evidence or what sort of information he has, whether it is first-hand, knowledge of what happened in the house, or whether he has come across that information through other people. But most likely, he has come across that information through other people. And my gut feeling is, if he's that convinced that, that is a narrative that must be followed, 375. And I'm also of the view that 375 is the only credible narrative. If you juxtapose it with 636, there are so many inconsistencies around 636. There are so many developments about it. You find you find people like Zungu, denying that they ever made affidavits, and all the other shenanigans. There's Gininda, Gininda has disclosed that Kelly Kumal was the mastermind behind the killing of Senzo MEYIWA, but he does nothing about the arrest of Kelly Kumalo. He goes on to say it was a prosecution-driven investigation, so the decision whether or not the warrant of arrest that had been prepared to be executed lay with the prosecutors. So 636 has, discredited itself. And from the word go, I've always maintained that it was just not plausible, because I've also interacted a lot with some of the investigators in this trial who have informed me that, police, the real investigators were thrown off the trail. They were sold a story that there had been intruders into that house, and They ran all over South Africa looking for non-existent intruders. The inconsistencies of not, treating that house as a crime scene, the investigation not focusing on the people in the house, there are so many problems around 636. But back to Malesela Teffo. Malesela Teffo has some very good information, or some very important information at his disposal. And that information, you see, to carry weight, must be somehow brought before court. Otherwise, it is just going to be a narrative that is just going to die away and just be another story doing the headlines, and a few days down the line, it is just simply forgotten. So my take is Teffo has got the evidence, seemingly from what he's saying. So the best thing for him to do is, get in touch with the defense lawyers in the MEYIWA trial. Impress upon them the fact that, I have this information which must be brought before the attention of the court. These are my sources, or this is the way I acquired that information, and that information must come before court. Because you see, outside disclosures will not take us very far. Yes, it is important for us to know, but having known, I think the next step is what action is then taken about such knowledge. Because knowledge just for the sake of us knowing will not take us any further. That evidence must be brought before court. And like I'm saying, you must get in touch with the defense team and see whether they cannot, subpoena any of the people, that he says can support that theory or the view that, or the position that he has taken that it was in fact Kelly Khumalo who accidentally shot Senzo, so that by so doing, he will completely rubbish the 636 narrative, which, as I've already indicated, is riddled with a lot of inconsistencies, and hardly anybody is convinced that what we are seeing unfold in the Pretoria High Court is really the trial that we are seeing. But anyway, it's a welcome development because it shows that Teffo is still here. Teffo is still adamant that 636 was a fabrication, and that Kelly Khumalo is the person who shot Senzo MEYIWA. And for some reason, a plot was hatched to cover up that accidental shooting by Kelly Khumalo, such that, an intruder theory now came into existence to try and protect her from, the riches of the law. So it is that today Kelly Khumalo remains a free woman, in spite of, what Teffo is saying, and also curious in spite of what Gininda himself has said in court. Gininda said Kelly Khumalo is the mastermind behind this crime. And so we'll see how things unfold. But like I'm saying, my message is these matters must be brought to court to be tested, because only when they are brought to court will they really begin to matter. Having said that, let me thank you for watching this video and have a nice afternoon and evening. Thank you.